Malt Club is a series of satirical animated cartoons on the dictator in Belarus. One of the founders, Pavel Maruso, was charged with slandering the president in 2005 and had to flee his homeland as a fugitive. This semester, Sarah Olsen, a 3D animation student based in Rotterdam, has built the foundation to an animated short film, Pig Out. Today I'm going to speak to Sarah about animation as a tool to create awareness and question the given norm. So can you tell us about the story?
The story takes place in a world where humans and pigs have switched roles, where pigs use and produce humans for food. One day a human manages to escape from an industrial slaughterhouse where he's about to get killed. He finds shelter in the garden of a suburban family who decides to let him stay. They nurture him and become role models in the organic farming community. The life for our protagonist, the human, improves greatly until the family eats him for Christmas dinner.
That sounds quite brutal.
Meat production and consumption is brutal, which is exactly what I would like to address with this film. Animals suffer beyond understanding, even in organic farms.
It seems like many people are going vegan these days. Do you think that has to do with a greater concern regarding animal mistreatment?
During the first part of my research, I had to teach myself about the industry. I discovered many recent documentaries like Food Incorporated or Cowspiracy, revealing terrible conditions during farming, transport, and slaughter. But despite many attempts to shed light on the industry and the growing concern publicly, meat consumption is steadily increasing, according to the World Watch Institute. It seems like it takes more than a public debate for people to make private changes and sacrifices.
So do you think this concern is visible in the art world as well?
One significant example is the publication Dead Meat from 1996, in which the artist and author Sue Coe depicted the meat production process graphically. As perhaps one of the most important pieces of documentation I came across, it seems very relevant now, some 20 years later, when industrial farm methods are continually in the headlines and PETA has moved to the mainstream. I believe most people feel affected when they hear about these conditions, yet many still buy meat that comes from factories where animals are abused. It seems like most of the information only reaches the public that already share the concern. In this sense, I found electronic music producer Matthew Herbert's record One Pig very interesting. One Pig consists of recordings made of a pig's 20-week life from birth to plate, acknowledging just how disconnected we are from the animals killed for food. It is sound first and message second, hence reaching many people outside the vegan community.
How are you planning on reaching the people that don't share your concern?
A lot of the imagery from the documentaries is so brutal that I began to understand why many people simply choose to look in another direction. That's when I, like many before me, decided to use another approach, satire, aiming to find balance between telling things that seem real and true and using wild imagination, exaggeration, and humor. This leads me to the second part of my research that started off with the question: how can a social and political issue be discussed in an entertaining animated short film?
I can imagine that is a question approachable from many angles. Where did you start?
In order to write a compelling and funny story, I turned to theory. The backbone and the foundation of my project so far is to be found in literature research. Syd Field's screenplay taught me that all drama is conflict. Without conflict, there is no action. Without action, there is no character, and without character, there is no story.
So, how did you find your characters?
Animal Farm, a satire novel by George Orwell from 1945, was a particularly interesting source of inspiration for me. The book is about a farm where the animals decide to rebel against the farmer. This book gave me the idea of a world where humans and pigs have switched roles.
We must convert all the animals on all the farms. We must send our pigeons out to spread the message of revolution.
But why pigs?
Pigs are claimed to be very clean animals and smarter than dogs, according to PETA, yet connotations of the word pig remains fat, lazy, disgusting, and sexist. Because of this contradiction and because of technical restraints, I decided to focus on one animal, the pig. There is no happy ending for a pig, became my premise. To communicate this, to put the mistreatment in perspective, I decided to create a human protagonist. If the viewer could identify and feel empathy for him, the viewer might be able to do the same for pigs in our human world.
So the human is our hero.
Yes, he's the one who offers the most conflict in the situation, yet someone we can identify with. To create an engaging story, I gave him the primal urge of survival. As we follow his escape, we pass many brutal places of the slaughterhouse. One reason for this was my desire to portray some of the brutalities of the industry without being over-explicit. When he manages to escape, we feel happy for him.
La 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 la.
The story comes across as an arc plot at first, goal-oriented with a 3-act structure. But as we proceed, it rather turns into a mini-plot where we have multi-protagonists, the family, and the human becomes rather passive. The goal is to give the viewer what he expects at first, a hero's journey, but then twist it around.
And so how did you approach the comedy genre?
In the book Story, Robert McKee writes that stories are equipment to living, equipment to grasp the patterns of life.
Problem for people today is confusion. In a world that should make sense. In a world in which you have more communication than ever, makes less and less sense than ever. And so you need storytellers to make sense out of that chaos.
I think some of the brutal truths of our society need to be packaged into stories so that we can comprehend them. And if packaged as comedy, we are, like McKee also writes, guaranteed that nobody will get hurt. It allows us to take the brutality with a grain of salt, with a laugh, but can nevertheless make us question our choices. The second part of my film will consist only of an interview with a family that took care of the human after his escape. This has a technical reason. It involves very little animation, but also a narrative reason. By using dialogue, I had the ability to make fun of many different stereotypes. The vegan, the meat eater, the housewife buying only organic products, the ignorant father. The underlying conflict between them made it easy to add change and value in every scene.
Please, Lisa, I thought you loved me. Loved me.
What's wrong, Lisa? Didn't you get enough lamb chops? I can't eat this. I can't eat a poor little lamb.
Oh, Lisa, get a hold of yourself. This is lamb, not a lamb.
I also made sure to include a few jokes in the opening image to set the tone of the film and make the viewer understand what they're in for. To tie the knot, the same joke appears again in the final image.
I believe many of these theoretical books are focused on live-action screenwriting and storytelling. Did you approach the information differently as an animator?
Like Paul Wells wrote, if it is the live-action film's job to present physical reality, animated film is concerned with metaphysical reality, not how things look, but what they mean. In the book Anima Sophie, Ulo Pikov claims that animated characters embody a wider and more complex symbol system than just the particular characters themselves. Homer Simpson is not only Homer Simpson, but also symbolizes the modern American, or even more broadly, the typical man of a welfare society. Because nothing is left to coincidence and everything is created from scratch, everything becomes a decision. Therefore, the character design process took a great deal of time. I actually had to build my own actors, which is very different from the live casting process.
Would you say that animation is more effective than live action when it comes to social criticism?
Yes, perhaps especially in the times of the internet. Social media has become an important news provider where humor story plays an important role in discussing current social issues. Modern animated shows like South Park can get away with many things because of their fictional nature, perhaps more than live action, and that way encourage debate amongst an audience that otherwise wouldn't take part. In that sense, I believe animation has the ability to educate without judgment.
Claire?
Do you think this has to do with aesthetics as well?
Definitely. Animation is a lot about following a particular audiovisual code. The characters and space have to be related to each other by coherent aesthetics, otherwise it collides. As an animator, time is always the enemy. I decided to go for a relatively simple and colorful style, not only to save time, but to give the film an overall lightheartedness. I strictly avoided realism to avoid anything uncanny, and to create as much empathy with the viewers as possible. Like Ulo Pikov put it is easier to have spiritual attitudes towards a rocking horse than a stuffed real horse.
So what's the next step in your process?
Next semester I will focus on acting and animation.
If you try to compare the situations and the environment that we live here with the environment that we live in Brazil, there is a big difference. Here, you live in a very small...
By the end of the semester I'm planning on sending it to film festivals and eventually share it on various social media. I'm hoping its controversial nature disguised will grant at least some attention. If I can make a few of the viewers think twice about the meat they buy and where it comes from, I will consider it a success.